Hey you, so today I want to talk a little bit about the content leverage system because I was asked by a client the other day, so I'm assuming this will be useful to many others, on how I create content on the fly so efficiently. Like I've checked here, like over the last 365 days on LinkedIn, I've got about 3 million impressions. I've managed to amalgamate an audience of 45,000 followers on LinkedIn, 4,000 on my email list, and just cross-platform. And this stems from a mistake that a lot of creators make where they think, I need to create 7 ideas all the time, and then they end up being overwhelmed at the sheer amount of effort it takes. But actually, what I'm going to show you today is how I take one idea, use a data-driven approach to maximize the output of that, and essentially squeeze out thousands of impressions and hundreds of leads through my content organically. Apologize for my voice today. I've caught a little bit of a cold, so we'll try my best. In the meantime, you can always hit subscribe to the channel. You can join my email list and follow me on LinkedIn if you want to check out more. I will leave this document in the description below for you too, so you can follow along. So let's get into it. Often creators get overwhelmed when they try to post hundreds of ideas on a weekly basis, right? So something I found useful is to find out one idea and create leverage out of it. I squeeze out 7 or more ways of saying the same thing without boring the reader. And I call this the content leverage system, as I've identified up here. It's that engine that generates the thousands of impressions and hundreds of leads on a weekly basis for me. I've tried to do this little doodle, which hopefully helps understand, but at the core, it's these 7 things. So number 1, I create a list, just like a grocery list. Then I expand on that list in a different format. Then I go long form post. I create a proven blog. I turn the lists into shorts. And then I take the proven blogs to create YouTube videos just like this one. And then number 7 is reformatting. So if I have text, I can go carousel. If I have a carousel, I can go short. YouTube short, TikTok or Instagram reel, etc., or just change it. But I'm going to go into detail on this little doodle for you. So, so far so good. Let's grab the first one, and you can always leave any questions in the comments below. So, posting a list, I like to think of these like grocery store shopping lists. They're the bare bones. You can create a post with 4 or 5 bullet points that summarize that idea. So I'll show you a real life example of a tweet that I did some time ago. So there you go. Here's a list. It's got 4 bullets. Every week I teach, show, share, invite. And then I end it with a little punchy line. So there you go. There is a grocery type list. I'll show you another example on Threads because I'm testing different platforms that aren't my primary ones. 5 steps to market anything, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then a punchy line, considering my Threads audience that performed quite well. So there we have it. Now for you, a real-time example that I prepared could be like 5 ways to improve focus, or rather 4 ways. 4 ways to improve focus. 1, 2, 3, 4. Does that make sense? So you can sort of create your own list and then you gauge using data like this on which one performed better. Number 2, if we go back, is expanded lists. What do I mean by expanded lists? So think of these like grocery lists with 1 or 2 line examples, or a list with some bits. We're putting some meat on the bone. And you can review your analytics on a weekly basis, find the best performing list from the first one, and expand on them, adding 1 or 2 sentences under each list item. putting that meat on the bone. Now that meat could be tips, reasons, mistakes, lessons, or anything, any sort of advice to back up that list header that we created, right? So we like adding meat to this. Now, for example, what we have here, this is a list. Remember the teach, show, share, invite, tweet? I'm now adding some meat on that bone. Show, there we go. If I go back to that first example, just so you can see, I know it's a different platform. That doesn't matter for me. Every week I teach, show, share, invite. So then the second iteration, expanding on that, is me adding that meat to the bone to help the reader understand a little bit more about it. Here's another example on threads. Oops, that was the old example. So there's the other one. I think of content. This is now Instagram. It's the teach, show, share, invite thing. How can I teach? A little bit of meat. How can I show? A little bit of meat on the bone, expanding that list, right? And so on and so on. So is that making sense so far? Here's a third example here of another LinkedIn post. I repurposed the teach, show, share, invite again. And you can see this time the meat is one sentence and I added an example. So show, behind the scenes of things you do daily, example, how I write 7 posts in an hour, etc. So for our example on focus, 4 ways to improve focus. I've literally taken the example from the previous one and then added meat. So 1, start your day with 30 minutes of deep work. Give me the meat on the bone. Find one task you're going to do for the day. Make sure you eliminate everything else. Use Pomodoro technique to structure your time. 40 minutes of focused work followed by 5 minutes of break. You can use a Chrome extension to trigger the timer. And so on and so on. So we're not complicating it. We're actually simplifying it by using the expanded list. Then we have a long form post. So think of a long form post as adding even more meat to that list or the list item that you got and creating like an atomic post for it. So this could be a long form LinkedIn post, an email, an Instagram carousel, a Twitter thread, or a long form tweet or equivalent. And this is your chance to expand in more detail on that initial list. So for example, I love showing you an example because it sort of brings it to life. There we go. So again, this was the original tweet, but now I'm expanding even more. Again, you see this was 2 weeks ago. How I think of content, what can I teach someone? More meat on the bone. What can I show someone? Expanding even more. Share, invite, and then I add even more to that and summarize the teach, show, share, invite at the bottom and give them a picture of something to ponder on. So can you see how this one is a long form post compared to the other ones? But it's again reiterating on that initial list. So when we go to our focus example that we're doing here together, what you want is, so struggling to stay focused in a world filled with distractions because the topic is about focusing. Here's 4 simple strategies to sharpen your focus and get more done. And then we grab each bullet point like I showed you in the example and we expand with a brief explanation of that. Then we can end with like a little bottom banger. Focus doesn't come from motivation, it comes from systems. Start small and results will follow. Awesome. Let me just give us a sense check. We've done lists, expanded lists, and we've done long form posts. Next, we want to talk about proven blogs. Something to distinguish is lists could be daily. Expanded lists, I sort of look at the data weekly and do 1 expanded list a week and then 1 long form post a week, because then we're basing it on the best performing lists. Now, the proven blog could be on a monthly sort of cadence, but it's up to you to determine that cadence. That's sort of my suggestion here. So let's check out the proven blogs. Take your long form post and turn it into a proven blog. I use the word proven here. Let's make it a bit bold, because you only want to write proven blogs from proven concepts, right? Analytics on social media are your friend. Otherwise, you spend a lot of time writing a long form piece that nobody's going to engage with. So an example is this document that you're watching right now will become a long form blog for Medium and or Substack, right? Or even for YouTube. You'll see why in a second. An example of a long form blog I created was how I use stories to make $100 to $250 per day. That was a concept similar to Teach, Show, Share, Invite on how I write stories on my email list using story, lesson, pivot, offer. I'll leave it here. You guys can check it out. But I then write long form, describe what everything is, give examples, but it all stemmed from that tiny little list, right? And then there's the list, there's the meat, all of that is coming together. And I'm talking story, lesson, pivot, offer in a long form way. Here's another example. So this is another one that started off as a list, but if I started from 0, here's how I would get to 30K months. And I'm expanding on what used to be a list, right? Offer, price, funnel, assets, go to battle, email list, selling, hiring, money mindset, and then the summary. Does that make sense? So I'm basically turning that into a proven blog. Like in this case, this blog was a carousel, but it was very long form with a summary, expanding on those. So depending on what you have, you decide what a proven blog is. So for example, with our improving focus, it could be the ultimate guide to improving focus. And we include the detailed insights, the supporting data or studies, real life examples or testimonials, and actionable steps as we tear everything down. So that is our proven blog. Then number 5 is turning those lists from step 1 into shorts. So we take those, and the easiest way to go about it is to literally read them out loud. These can turn into shorts for YouTube, Reels for Instagram or TikTok, LinkedIn, Facebook, whatever platform you are on. Here's an example of one of each. There you go. I'm simply making an invitation to someone to come into my world. But you can see I'm literally reading off the screen. So that's one example of a short. Then we've got LinkedIn here. I did exactly the same thing. If I'm not mistaken, I think this one performed really well. I gave it a little bit of context here. So it got almost 500,000 impressions. As you can see, I'm sort of reading out loud a list item and repurposing it. So that's another example for you. And then a third example is exactly the same thing, repurposed to Instagram, right? And then, if I see the insights, my Instagram is much smaller, but it did get 591 views here, of which 42% were non-followers, which to me, this is quite good in terms of who I'm reaching and my audience. So in our example, we could record a 60-second Instagram reel or TikTok video and say, here are 4 quick ways to improve focus. 1, 2, 3, 4. This is exactly the same thing that we did in the list. just a different format now. Which one will you try first? And we can do that. So the other thing we can do as step 6 is turn the proven blogs into YouTube videos. So we take proven blogs and either read them out loud as I'm sort of doing here, or do deep dives explaining the ins and outs of the blog post, providing even more context. This video you're watching right now is an example because I'm reading, I've prepared that long form blog, right? But I'm giving my own interpretation, my own perspective and context as we go along. Now, an example of that is, if you remember what we just did, this is a YouTube video that's 15 minutes long of me taking that proven blog, or rather carousel from LinkedIn that I showed you earlier, and talking about it for 15 minutes and giving even more context by simply hitting record on a Loom video on all of that and accumulating 877 views 6 months ago, some comments, and basically, you know, growing my YouTube channel in a similar manner. Is it coming together? Awesome. I'll show you 2 more examples. So in this case, the Teach, Show, Share, Invite initial list became an 11-minute YouTube video as my LinkedIn content strategy, where I talk about teaching, showing, sharing, and inviting by simply expanding on what those points were. So there's another one for you. And then if I look at this one, which was 34 minutes, what I did, if you can see in here, teach, show, share, invite again, I'm breaking it down, but this time I was writing 7 posts in 33 minutes using exactly that, explaining the strategy, and then allowing the reader or the consumer to watch how I put that in practice, right? Again, 645 views, not crazy for YouTube, as I'm only just getting started, but it's actually benefiting my channel, my growth. I'm showing these videos in my email, on my LinkedIn, and creating this content leverage system. So let's go back to our proven blog example. If we go on the improving focus, we could film a 10-minute video, maybe a 10 to 20-minute video on how to improve focus and stay productive. I would walk through each strategy with examples, tips, even visuals like timers for Pomodoro, how we block notifications on the phone to actually give it more context. So we've now mastered our little improvement example. Now, let's get on to the last step. The last step is, if something worked on one platform, you can always reformat it on other platforms. You may have seen a gist of that earlier when I was explaining. But the hack is you can also reformat it on the same platform. So I want to show you a few examples to hopefully make sense. So this is an example of a text post that I did. On 12 steps I used to build a side hustle, so you can too. I would say this is more like a long form post or an expanded list of 12 ways that I used to build that side hustle. There it is. It was almost a year ago with my little cat Pickles. It got 8,000 impressions, 239 likes, reposts, leads came through. Because I mentioned Calendly, and also a PS here with my email list. Notice that on LinkedIn, though, I edit it because we throttle the reach if we add a direct link. So I went back a few days later and edited it. So here's the post. It's in text with a photo of my cat. Then I turned it into a carousel. So I reformatted it 11 months ago, so 1 month later in context. 12 steps, again, the same hook, the same thing. This time 337 likes, 60,000 impressions, 4 reposts, right? But all I did was I copied and pasted the exact same text and changed the format, right? There it is. Just went a little bit crazy on the visuals because I enjoyed myself. But again, you see how I've reformatted it. Then I created the same thing as a Twitter thread. 12 steps again. I just sliced it up and then pasted it into Twitter as well. I did the same on Instagram. I just don't think I found it here, or maybe I did, I'm not sure. But exactly just reformatting. But here you can also see on Twitter, I hand wrote this and did it again, got some feedback. It's exactly the same text, just reformatted it, still sending people to my email list, getting creative with the way that I sort of do that. And then let's see what this last example is. So reformatting on LinkedIn too. This one got 180, 7,900 impressions, 2 reposts, exactly the same thing 9 months ago. So technically, if we look at the LinkedIn example, it was 12 months, then 11, then 9. So they were literally 3 months apart. One was 1 month apart, and I'm maximizing the impressions by reformatting. If you want more training on how to repurpose from different angles and things, I'll leave a YouTube video here for you. A little content masterclass, feel free to check it out. So we've done a lot today. This content leverage system not only maximizes your content, but it ensures it gets refined and repurposed to meet your audience across multiple platforms. This video or cycle of content came from that one idea. Remember? Teach, show, share, invite. If I remind you, this was the original tweet that started off the cycle. And as you've seen, I've done this concept multiple times in many different ways to gain leverage on my content. And it stems from one Notion file I created for clients. I'm going to give it to you for free. It's my personal content strategy that I used in 2023 to 2024. Essentially what I'm doing, if you see, teach, show, share, invite with examples of each of my posts. But I created this for a client and explained to them what I'm doing. And in the process of sort of doing that, it stemmed into I'm terrible with my tabs, into this little tweet, and then created that entire flywheel. It's a system, or one of the systems I use inside Modern Maker, my community of creators, entrepreneurs, founders who all get together to make more money online through content creation and writing. You can check out the community here if you'd like to join us. I actually just talked about flywheels and retrospectively breaking down my year. And then there's a lot of us in here. I think there's 115 members so far. If you want to join us, you can. But before you go, I want to take this exact document and reverse engineer it backwards for you at high level so you can see how I would go about it. Here's a little reminder on what we did so far. Lists, expanded lists, long form posts, proven blogs, lists to shorts, proven blogs to YouTube videos, and reformatting. So this entire video said how I take one idea and repurpose it in 7 different ways, right? To squeeze out the content. So if I created a list, I would take these items and go one idea to 7 different ways. Here they are. Remember, this is still the same topic. End with a punch, and then add this supplementary image from this doodle. Expanded list. I would take the above and describe each list item and what each point is about. Have an expanded list. Remember our grocery list with a little bit of context. Long form post. I take the list and expand deeper into what each of these points mean to me. as we've sort of done in the document. So the work is already done. Proven blog, I take the long form post and turn it into a blog. Lucky for me, this exercise has already been created. Has already, if I can spell, has already been created. So all I have to do is copy paste it into Medium, Substack, and or equivalent from this. Lists to shorts. I would take the tweet in point 1 and read it out loud. Proven blog to YouTube video. This is exactly what you are witnessing right now as you're watching, reading out the blog, right? And then reformatting, I would take the long form post in step 3 and turn it into a carousel, a single image, etc. So thank you so much for reading or watching. You can always hit subscribe on this YouTube channel. Join my email list on swipemymojo.com. Follow me on LinkedIn or join us at Modern Maker. More power to you, and I'll see you in the next one.